I am saying is that rationale is understandable. The rationale that's not understandable is, well, I was planning all along to enforce this.
The death of H3, it was the most devastating hit piece on H3. Yes. Trust me, it hit a lot harder than whatever Hassan and his crowd could cook up. The reason for this is because Goku Naru at the time had the aesthetic of a humble YouTuber. Okay, he doesn't have the whole like megalomaniac Hassan Piker mafia lord that is already well poisoned, right? He came from the perspective of a humble YouTuber. So when that happens, yeah, people are going to take it a little bit more earnestly, right?
Standard, which isn't present in the copyright statute, to have some level of judicial precedent, but the judicial precedent that isn't an all chilling of the broader reaction community. And I don't want to chill XQC and people like him, even though I say that they're pervading an.
In fact, if I have to do so, say so myself, okay? To this day, Goku Naru is still criticizing H3, okay? Just mainly because I kind of get it. They have a history, so it's a little bit more justifiable because they have a history with one another that has nothing to do with the Israel-Palestine situation. But I just want to say, all right, yeah, he's still criticizing it. To this day, Goku Naru is still not fucking sued. He's not named. He's not sued. Nothing has happened to him. Okay.
Injustice, and they're egregious, and what they're doing is theft. I don't want to chill that. I want to protect that. That to me doesn't make any sense. Even though he's previously said that that kind of shit is egregious and wrong, and he couldn't have planned in advance for the distinction line that he's now pushing, for those admissions to have come. He couldn't have known that when he was setting up this whole scenario, when he was registering the copyright at the Copyright Office, when he was preparing for litigation, that they were going to have this damning admissions. In fact, he says, I couldn't have imagined, right, that it would be as good as it was. He wasn't expecting them to say such obviously bad things. And so it can't have been his design initially to just go after them for admissions that he didn't perceive were going to happen.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is you can set out on some action or whatever with a certain set of expectations or intentions, and then your thinking about what to do moving forward can change in the moment based on other considerations.
Right,
so
right,
like,
no,
okay,
yeah,
you're Ethan.
but what is the consideration?
You're Ethan. You've set these traps. You have this personal vendetta against these creators for CPS stuff and a bunch of other stuff, and then everybody else reacts, and then you have these creators that take it to a whole nother level. To me it's conceivable that Ethan would be like, okay, well, what do I do from here?
Yeah,
and like maybe he thought about
what do I do.
Maybe he thought about suing like a larger swath of creators, and then maybe he came to a conclusion of like, well, wait, hang on a second. I don't want to necessarily cause some kind of chain reaction that's going to completely like stifle or discontinue altogether React content. Therefore, I'm going to try to do this other thing. Like, that's conceivable to me. I don't know Ethan's thinking. So you could be right, but that's conceivable.
It's conceivable to you that Ethan could say that what XQC does is theft, but saying that preventing XQC from committing theft, that has such bad secondary effects that I wouldn't want to punish XQC for.
No, you wouldn't want to punish the React community by
going after XQC.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Oh my God. I think that is, I think, for example, if some rights holder, let's say that if XQC started reacting to The Little Mermaid and Disney sued him, I think that, and all XQC did was like, yeah, bro, that's crazy. Yeah, bro, crazy, whatever. Yeah, crazy. And he just did a Little Mermaid react and Disney sued him. I think that Ethan would say, yeah, fuck around, find out. I think Ethan would say, yeah, they're well within their rights. Yeah, what XQC did was wrong, and I'm okay with Disney suing to enforce their copyright. You don't think he would say that?
Well, I mean, it's just pure speculation. I have no idea. I mean, I think it's like I said, I think it's totally conceivable that he could talk about it on his podcast where it's like, I think what XQC did was wrong, but I could see this causing a chilling effect. Like, that to me is not out of the realm. You don't seem to entertain that possibility.
I think that is such an implausible possibility that what he's saying is what's really important to, because he is trying to assert a standard, right? So he is saying, I am trying to chill some stuff, right? It wouldn't make sense that he's painting himself as protecting the reaction community if he weren't trying to set at least some kind of standard, right? So if he's trying to set some kind of standard, right? Agreed, right? He's trying to set a standard, an internal standard for the insiders to adhere to. Fair?
Yes, and in doing so, would you acknowledge that you can protect a community like the React community by imposing better standards?
You
to
could conceivably
reduce the risk of something bigger happening later down the line.
I'm not saying that it's incomprehensible that you could protect the community by imposing some kind of internal
Then
standard.
you must
That's
vote
possible.
to acquit.
No.
Then you must vote to acquit.
No, but here, what the
What did XQC do anyway? Yeah, sure. XQC is one of the largest streamers in the world. What he did is that essentially there was a trend in which content creators like XQC were reacting to extremely viral videos on YouTube and just re-uploading the thumbnail, and except their face is edited inside. The purpose is to capture the YouTube algorithm in a way where instead of watching the original video, they are watching XQC's reaction to it. Except the reaction isn't really a reaction. He grunts. They might say, "That's crazy, chat." And they might say these incredibly like inane things, but otherwise it's not really a reaction. In every sense of the word, it's almost like you're stealing content, or you're stealing, like, it's like stolen valor, right? In a way. So that is what Ethan Klein is referring to, and I do think it's a valid concern. But yeah, anyway,
standard that he's proposing, which
that's
is
something different now.
in order to protect from Disney and Sony,
They keep mentioning him, because that's the go-to example, because XQC debated Ethan Klein, so he became a go-to example. That's it.
the standard that will protect, that I think will protect from Disney and Sony, is the standard of stated intentional malice. You think that that's what he's thinking? That what will protect us from Disney and Sony is imposing a standard on the community of intentional stated malice. That's really.
I think it's more just the idea that he could. I think part of the problem. Tell me you agree. I think part of the problem is that with the Twitch lefty streamers specifically, there's been a sort of level of impunity that has been going on for like a year and a half.
A level of impunity. I don't know what that means. Level of impunity. Can you tell me what you mean?
Would you agree that there has been a double standard in the enforcement of TOS, and that it is
Twitch?
very
Yes.
likely that?
Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Maybe not necessarily total impunity, but like the fact, like the mere fact that people like Frenum.
Oh my goodness. Foodshops.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you so much for the 1 gifted membership. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You're very kind. Okay, guys, if you guys want to support me, remember, super chat or membership, don't know, is always appreciated. Not required for you to watch the stream. And remember, join our Discord server down below. Okay, it is in the description below. All right, exclamation mark Discord. Go there now. All right, join our community. Be active in there. We are an active community. We are very nice people. Except when it comes to bowling Wintermute and bowling Worm Slayers, okay? Anyway. Your gift membership notification sound is hilarious. Yeah, it's me. Of course it's hilarious.
We'll just call them
It's me.
Frenums. We'll combine the names. The mere fact that
Frenums.
mere fact that Frenums just said this openly, I think, indicates a level of impunity. They didn't even entertain the possibility that they would get in trouble for this. And
is
so
perfect.
I think
don't change this.
Okay, but that
Where was I
isn't,
going
that
with this?
isn't
I kinda lost my
responsive.
train of thought.
So that's because I don't think that's responsive to what I'm saying. So I agree that he could feel very hard done. I agree that there's a double standard at Twitch. I agree that they're impermissibly, being unfair and all that shit. And I'm not disputing anything you're saying. I've said it in the past.
No, Frenums.
I'm saying, do you think it's conceivable that in Ethan's mind, when he was dividing his video, or when he was deciding to sue people, some people versus the others, that in his mind was, I'm going to set an internal standard that protects against Sony and Disney, and that internal standard is stated intentional malice. That's the kind of internal standard that will protect us from Disney and Sony. You think that was conceivably going through his mind?
No, I'm not saying that he originally set out with that
No,
intention. I'm saying it's
no,
that,
even after the reactions happened, and when he was devising his strategy on who to sue. So this is before his
still
trap,
still
after his
opening?
trap has been sprung. That after when he's deciding how to do the litigation, he thought to himself, I really want to protect the content community from people like Sony and Disney, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to define a standard, an internal compliance standard, and that standard will be to protect us from Sony and Disney. No stated intentional malice, and when we do that, it will protect us from Sony and Disney.
No, but I think it goes beyond that. I think he's not necessarily just trying to set a standard where outright malice would be completely off the table. I think he's sort of just generally like, or at the very least, I should say, I think it's plausible to me
That he was thinking that
no, that he wasn't necessarily thinking in specifics of like, okay, I want to engineer a very specific outcome where this specific standard is set and this specific standard and this specific, but just generally, just to like.
Think of Ethan Klein as some kind of mastermind, way more intelligent than he actually is, and like predicting everything beforehand, like some kind of some kind of global cabal. Very Jewish.
Like send the message that like some actions can be taken, like that legal actions can be taken.
Okay.
But I mean, this is just speculation. But I'm just saying, like, it's possible that he didn't have like.
No, but because Ethan's very specific. He says that he wants to enforce this line being the malicious line. That's the line he wants to enforce, and the reason he wants to enforce that is to protect Sony and Disney. He can't be that naive, right?
He could. I mean, first of all, I don't know if it's naivete, but second of all, he could be. I don't know.
No, we have to agree that that's naivete. That.
It's a shame Hutch isn't filming with Boganara because Foodshops is right about that disarms Pisco's argument. Yeah. And it isn't just, I don't think it's Goganara either. Do you know how many people beefed? Do you know how many people beefed with Ethan Klein? Too many. What? So he didn't sue all of these people at all? All of these people who have damaged his reputation over the years? Like none of them? Really? Really makes you think, right?
That this line of a self-enforced line of no stated intentional malice, where you just put in your comments, like hey, no copyright infringement intended, make sure to go sign up for Disney Plus, that line will at all protect from Sony and Disney. That is naivete and complete delusion, right? I mean, you agree that line makes no sense? I think is not,
but what I'm saying is what I think is not naivete is that a lawsuit like this that is more targeted in its approach could send a message to React streamers that there need to be standards, but without taking it to the extent where if you go after someone like XQC and Asmongold, it could cause a lot of people to just stop doing Reacts altogether. Just the mere act of him trying to impose any standards at all could be enough to incentivize like an organic, natural reform.
His bladder's full.
Like people might start adopting stricter standards for themselves because of this lawsuit. But if you went as far as taking that,
wouldn't you issue a statement and say, "Hey, I'm not going to do this, but people like XQC and Asmongold, they need to stop." Why wouldn't you just say that? XQC.
I think they debate the whole time. We'll stop at 10 p.m. my time, okay? And then we'll continue tomorrow if it keeps going.
And Asmongold need to stop, and I'm going to DMCA what they're doing right now because this is so wrong. But he refrains, even though at the start he kind of hints at what they're doing is an injustice. He says what they're doing is an injustice. Why wouldn't he be more insistent if really what his plan was to say that XQC and Asmongold need to reform, if that were really his intent here, as opposed to trying to produce some kind of post hoc rationale for why he's suing some people versus another? Why wouldn't he be more insistent? Why wouldn't he be more clear and say, hey, even though I'm suing these people, I want to be clear, and this is a message out to XQC. What you're doing is wrong, and you should.
Isn't that the point of the video, though?
Oh, but no, because what he's saying.
Isn't that the point of the video? Because he spent a good deal amount of time talking about XQC.
But he's doing that, and then the rationale he's dying on to say, yeah, it's wrong. I'm not going to enforce against them because the real line that matters is because he has all those past statements, right? He has all those past statements that are critical. He's aware of that. Ethan's conscious of that, and so he needs to find a way to explain it and tidy it up. And the post hoc rationale that he's come up with, where he can still try to maintain what I think is an untenable position, is, well, it's this malice thing. That's what he's trying to explain away. But the problem is,
it is an ocean of. I just want to say something quick. I think it's an ocean of difference between XQC and Hassan, like the way that they react to things. Okay, because when XQC doesn't take like when XQC doesn't take a loss well, he points to his watch and says, I have a whole house on my wrist, okay? Ha 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 ha, look at me, right? It's kind of childish, it's kind of cute, okay? Right, you do, you know what, you do you, fam, you know? And later on, XQC then turned his like worm bit into an actual thing. He turned it into a community meme, right? Like it's like at that point, it's like everyone's making fun of him, right? He just doesn't care anymore. So I guess what I'm saying here is when Hassan throws a tantrum, he just mauls nonstop, okay? But when X2C throws a tantrum, it's only for a little bit, and then afterwards he turns it into a meme. He turns the worm into a meme, you know? So that's admirable. It is a little bit more admirable, okay? A little bit. Okay, to be fair, XQC is still a giant baby, okay? But it's better.
If he were actually trying to change XQC and Asmongold's behavior, he wouldn't let them off the hook and be like, don't worry, I'll never sue you guys. I'll never go after you guys. I don't care. However, you can literally copy whatever you want to do. As long as you don't say out loud, I want to steal money from you, I'm not going to go after you. I would never go after you.
He didn't necessarily let XQC off the hook. I mean, he did in terms of litigation, but he, devoted what, 5-7 minutes specifically to XQC and that type of, talking broadly about like, non-transformative React stuff.
Yeah,
like if he wasn't concentrated on this at all, like why did he devote like a third of the video talking about that type? It wasn't just about denims and Frogan. I mean, he was calling attention to, I think, a larger problem,
because I think he has those past statements and it's an obvious hypocrisy, and so he pretends to address it, but isn't, and the only stated rationale is not a plausible one, and it's not plausible because no one, not Ethan is not that naive. Ethan does not think that enforcing an internal compliance standard at the point of intentional stated siphoning malice, that would in any way protect against Sony or Disney issuing a lawsuit. You must agree with that. He can't
not
be
necessarily,
thinking that.
but listen, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think I have done my job and instilled enough reasonable doubt.
No.
If you're saying it's implausible, we'll let the chats decide. I think it's totally plausible that Ethan, after the fact, decided, okay, like I have all this stuff. What do I do with it? And then, yes, even after.
Dude, Pisco just wanted to keep on pissing, okay? But then Hutch really put his finger onto Pisco's peeing, okay? Like blocked the tip and said, no more pissing. The pissing must stop.
For the fact, yes, exactly.
Yeah, so after the fact, he's like, okay, this person has mouth, this person. Oh, I know what I'll say. Well, I at this moment, I'm just
no homo.
Serendipitously, out of the head of Zeus, I'm struck that I really need to protect the content React community, and I don't want to go after XQC because that will hurt the community. Because in my mind, I think that going after like one of the worst injustice, one of the prime suspects, that will impermissibly chill people in a way that going after these people won't impermissibly chill people. And what will protect us against Sony and Disney is if we make sure that this is the particular line, and it just so happens, very lucky, that the line that will protect us from Sony and Disney happens to be the people I all hate. That happens to be my determination. When it's so naive and implausible to think that would ever protect from Sony or from Disney, it's just, I think it's ludicrous.
Okay, I'm gonna make my closing argument,
okay.
and the jury can do what they do. The reason why I think it's plausible is because Ethan has been on the other end of this. Ethan was, I mean, I think we would both agree that what Ethan was doing with his old content absolutely was transformative. I mean, it was like 80% him talking, 20% video.
Agreed.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched the entire video.
As a matter of law.
And so somebody took him to court and tried to sue him, and it was a huge inconvenience for him, and he had to spend a bunch of money on the lawsuit, and ultimately he was successful there. So he had that experience. And then as time went on, he also had the experience of being a creator who was, in his mind, like people were unfairly using his content in a way that, like, he was sticking up for like his type of transformative content. And then he's confronted with this new sort of paradigm in streaming where people are just basically like stealing the content, not making any effort to be transformative. And so like that experience alone that he had, to me, would very logically lead him to setting a goal of like, I want to address this, but not in a way that would end up like if my old lawsuit went the other way. I think to me, like, I don't know if I'm articulating myself very well right now, but to me, it's very plausible just based on the historical record that he would have this sort of sense of priority.
But I praised him. I just want to say real quick, I praised him for setting great precedent in the SDNY, and for years I think that he's been an incredible fighter for getting the right fair use content and actually having an understanding of copyright that's way more sophisticated as a non-lawyer than a ton of other content creators. And whenever there was a big copyright discussion, Ethan would be there and he would be fighting, and I'd be cheering for Ethan on the sidelines. And so I have no doubt, and I totally agree with you, that Ethan before has had the right approach on fair use, but that right approach involved being excoriating on XQC and people like him, not on the basis of stated, like, XQC raised all of these arguments. XQC say, I don't want to steal from them, I want to help them. And what Ethan said consistently is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter that your intent is to help them. You don't get to decide their use of property based on your intent. You're infringing on their property. It doesn't matter if you have good intent, bad intent, if you want to help them or not. They have the ultimate say over their own property. And so intent doesn't.
No, I still think Pisco's glazing Ethan too much to be a Hassan glazer just yet. Okay? Like, I would agree with you, but then I feel like I think Pisco just glazed Ethan still a little bit too much, okay? And the fact that he hasn't even addressed like the so-called Palestinian genocide, not yet, okay? Not yet. I don't think so. But the moment he starts talking about genocide, I don't know. Who knows?
Doesn't matter. And all of a sudden,
it's bad faith glazing. I do think it's bad faith glazing. Okay. Do you think it's bad faith glazing?
When he needs to come with a rationale to distinguish who he's suing and who he's not suing, and when he wants to have people on board to come mob against the people he doesn't like, all of a sudden intent matters, when for years and years and years he said, it doesn't matter what you think. The infringer doesn't get to decide for the property rights holder when and how they can infringe on their property.
But it's not just about intent when it comes to the current situation. Like, he went after the people he went after because of their intent. But in the video that he made, he was also making a larger point about the lack of transformative effort on the part of creators. Like, they're linked, they overlap with each other. They're obviously like related in terms of topics, but they're kind of two separate things. Like, fuck these people. They said they wanted to steal my views, so I'm going to sue them. But also we need to talk about like the larger issue here. And the reason why to me it's plausible is because it's totally consistent with what Ethan has been saying for years.
I think it's inconsistent. I think it's totally inconsistent with what he's been saying for years. And I like the old Ethan in the sense that I'm not saying he crashed out all that shit and that he's a different person now. I'm saying the old Ethan's position on fair use. That's the one that I like, where he said, it's your rights. You know, you people don't get to decide for you whether or not you're doing it for a good or bad purpose, and then infringement doesn't care about that stuff. And now all of a sudden, it's the quintessential element that we're gonna use to protect from Sony and Disney is this kind of stated malicious intent to siphon.
This camera is viewer funded by you guys. Okay, it's viewer funded. Yeah.
And when that was never
I think
mattered,
it's a quintessential element that he's using to fuck with these people that fucked with him. Yeah, but he's also making this larger
why it's
point.
Not plausible that he's doing this to protect the rat community. He's doing it because it's a simple rationale that he can use to go after these people, not other people, and it can even be a justifiable one. But it's not based in some kind of feeling of protection of the React community. If anything, he must know that any precedent that's going to come out of this isn't going to dwell on the issue he says is most important, and that if he gets to dispositive motion, and if there is an opinion, it's almost certainly going to limit the status quo. It's going to be new precedent that, again, limits the scope of status quo and expands on, like example, in the Bold Guy video precedent, what Ethan had was like very good transformative content. Now the courts are going to opine on much, much, much less transformative content in 3 different cases. Of course, the court, especially out of California, which is very protective of rights and intellectual property, of course that the courts are going to issue opinions that are going to be narrowing what the status quo is in the React community. And so to pretend that you think that the courts are going to focus in on this rationale that appears nowhere in the copyright statute, that frankly isn't relevant, is naive to the point of being disingenuous, as is the notion that what Sony and Disney and these big rights holders actually care about is that same kind of malice, when again, it's not relevant to the copyright statute, it's not relevant to their bottom lines, it's never mattered before to Ethan. That to me is the height of disingenuousness. I don't even think it's a close call. I think it's so beyond a reasonable doubt that I would vote to convict in this context.
You don't think it's ever mattered to Ethan that he wanted to clarify what constitutes as fair use and doesn't? That was the whole purpose of the first case.
I agree that in the first case that he is trying to draw this line and distinction. What I disagree with is...
How much longer does this go on? If it's almost done, then... Okay, let me see. 4:38. 4:39:22.
It's all related to a video that's about these people, largely about Hassan, but also his orbiters, and that it's in the context of constant back and forth fighting. The notion that what was front of mind wasn't going after these people specifically is so implausible to me. It just like that he set a trap for just anyone who might infringe on that content. That doesn't seem plausible to me. I think the trap was being set for people he didn't like. That's who the trap was set for. Because he knows more
up the price. And
Okay, so they still talk, even though they literally said we're gonna wrap it up. Okay, all right, we'll finish this another time. Okay.